Thank you, Jean-Michel, and thank you again for all of our participants tonight to attend this webinar, first to share their perspective on what is happening in Serbia currently from the academic perspective and also from the activist perspective, which was really important for us to have these both perspectives to present the situation and to raise awareness on what is happening currently in Serbia. Because as Jean-Michel said, we were amazed, let's say, by how little it's covered in the media here in Belgium and in the West, and how it's just really descriptive. And so that's why it's really important to have this event tonight. I would like to first briefly present our participants who also have the opportunity to share more information about them if they want. So tonight we have Dušan Spasojević, who is a professor and researcher in political science at the Faculty of Political Science of Belgrade. Dinko Gruhonjić, who is a journalist and also an associate professor at the Faculty of Philosophy in Novi Sad. And Irena Fiket, who is an associate professor at the Institute for Philosophy and Social Science of the University of Belgrade. And of course, our activists. We have currently Mila Pajić, who is a student and an activist, one of the main activists leading the movement of students in Novi Sad. And we normally also have Enes Džogović, who is from Novi Pazar, but I don't know why he didn't join it. Currently, I sent him an email, so I hope he will join us later to also share his perspective with Mila about the movement. I would like to first start with a general question that I will address to our academic speakers to introduce the topic by presenting us the significance of what is currently happening in Serbia. So could you briefly present us why the student movement emerged in Serbia and what are its origins? So I will maybe first give the floor to Dušan, and then we can talk about it with Dinko and Irena too. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Neira. Yeah, the student protest started 2.5 months ago. They started after the incident happened in the New Belgrade, after the students of Faculty of Dramatic Arts have been attacked by representatives of the local branch of the Serbian Progressive Party during their protest. The protest started after the fall of the canopy at the railway station in Novi Sad, and they spread a little bit through Belgrade, Novi Sad, and other large places. They started as both as a way to put pressure on the government to do something, but also as the way to express disaffection with another tragedy that happened in our country. And then the whole crisis develops. I can't say, I mean, I think we all feel that like this crisis is lasting like 5 or 6 months, and then, or even longer than that, but actually it's not that long. But during that crisis, many things happened. And I've been often asked to describe what's new and what's different and what might be the political outcomes of this process. So I will mostly focus on that. Let me just briefly add that the initial protests were actually led or initiated by the opposition, but after the attacks on the students, the university blockades became the key form of the protest through plenary sessions, direct democracy, and forms of organizing we haven't seen in Serbia for a while, and never in this scope. What is different in this time is that student protest position itself above party line and distance themselves from the political parties and even from civil society representatives. And they focus on 4 very concrete demands dealing with the tragedy in Novi Sad. And this focus on very specific demands kind of enabled them to be sort of an anti-signifier and that people could gather around them regardless of their party affiliation. which meant that at the end of the day, or in the current stage of the protest, that voters of all parties, including the ruling parties, have shown support to students' demands. It is also interesting that protests have been widespread, especially after New Year and Christmas holidays. They start initially as a protest within the educational system from the university, but then spread to higher and elementary schools. But then later included peasants, lawyers, and so on and so forth. And now we call them student protests, but they have a widespread support throughout society. But they're still sort of led by students, and students have the key saying in, for example, actions and the pace of the protest and the key ideas of the protest. What is also interesting is that the protests were widespread not only into university centers, like 4 or 6 or 7 larger cities in Serbia, but they are spread throughout Serbia, which means that many people are involved in the protest, and that the fear has been broken, and that there is a hope for many people that something will change for the first time. I want to emphasize this because Serbian politics had been very predictable since 2014, let's say. And of course, we did have several protest waves in the last 5 or 6 years, but this is something different, and this represents the most important challenge for the regime. And for the first time, we are kind of unclear about the potential outcomes. In terms of the regime, I might add that the government uses its old tactics, which means a little bit of a combination of stick and carrot. But in this case, some of the elements of this tactics are not working. For example, defamation tactics often used on the civil society and opposition is not working on students. Divide and conquer approach is also not working on students because they are focused on demands and ignoring all other issues that might divide them. Then the second element of this government sedition are different form of invitations to dialogue, negotiations, institutionalization of the process. They're trying to bring students into the forms that government dominates, and also fulfillment of some demands, partial fulfillments, and so on and so forth. However, the key element of the strategy is the attrition, actually. Government is stalling and wasting time, waiting to protest to die on their own, as they did in the last several cases. So in that sense, I think we are all asking for sometimes when and if that will happen, and that is the key challenge for the protest in the last weeks. At the moment, protests are still very massive. I wouldn't say I'm not sure if they have reached the peak. I'm sure that they are not in decline yet. But at some point in the future, there will be a question on what to do next. One option is to put significant pressure, so government have to give up, and either to fulfill the demands completely, or to have some form of transitional government. But then, of course, if the first scenario happens, then there is a question what to do with dissatisfaction in Serbia, because so many people are on the streets and they see this as an opportunity to tackle the regime itself, and not only to fulfill the demands of the students. So that is probably the situation we are in at the moment. Students are marching toward Kragujevac, where they will where they will celebrate Constitution Day after tomorrow, and in order to put emphasis on the Constitution and rule of law, and that is the key message of this protest. Although there is a constant, dilemma: are these protests pro EU, pro Russia, pro this and that? But in a sense, they are aimed at institutions, constitution, and accountability, which makes them very interesting, but also which create a huge support throughout society. Okay, that will be, I think, enough for the first take on my side.
Thank you, Dušan. We will tackle this topic also about EU and what is going to happen after, and what do we expect of this movement actually for the future of Serbia. I will now give the floor to Dinko, who wanted to share his own perspective on what is currently happening. So you have the floor.
Thank you, Neira. Good evening to everyone. I apologize because I will be personal, but I believe my example will be illustrative of the state of media freedom on the first place in Serbia, as well as the state of human rights for those who criticize the authoritarian regime of Aleksandar Vučić, especially in light of today's mass student and civil protests in Serbia. I'm writing from a country where the regime has literally labeled me as the state enemy #1, even though I'm just a university professor and a journalist. If you ask me why this is the case, I honestly have no answer. Maybe to ask Mr. President Aleksandar Vučić or the resigned Prime Minister Miloš Vučević, who are leading the campaign targeting me and my family. They have also targeted our son, who lives and works in Zagreb, as a Croatian spy. The whole story began with a deep fake video that was edited in last March to make it seem like I was a fan of war criminals from the Second World War. The original video came from a human rights festival in Dubrovnik in Croatia. At that festival, we sharply criticized historical revisionism and the glorification of war criminals in Croatia and Serbia. All participants of that human rights festival, including myself, are journalists and activists who have dedicated their lives to fighting against chauvinism and militant nationalism. So for us, anti-fascists, Vučić's regime tried to label us as fascists. A lynching campaign followed last spring, led by Vučić and Vučević. A graffiti with an explicit death threat was written on the building where I live with my family. Our daughter was the first one to see it. We received hundreds of direct death threats and thousands of the chauvinistic insults. They insulted us on the streets of the city we live in. They tried to have me removed from the university where I'm employed. The state provided me with absolutely no protection. I had private security provided by the European Federation of Journalists. Thanks to donors, I was able to leave Serbia last summer for a month and a half, as my life was and still is in danger. The campaign against me continues to this day, and it will be soon a year since it started. Not a day goes by without Vučić's propaganda media drawing a target on my forehead. Almost no day passes without the president and the resigned prime minister mentioning me on television, telling lies about me. Some individuals follow me and then it published it in regime media. They lie about me being the leader of the student protests and in the worst possible ways insult and target students who are blocking faculties to seek justice. They lie about me being the leader of the opposition and the leader of a movement preparing so-called secession of the Vojvodina province from Serbia. So all they do is lie at any cost. In an effort to stay in power and avoid the responsibility for the state crime that caused the deaths of 15 people at a railway station in Novi Sad, which was the result of the corruption carried out at the highest state level. Under Aleksandar Vučić's regime, corruption in Serbia has reached endemic levels as the state state's connections with organized crime are also very close. That's about my personal level of the story. Regarding official data, if we talk about media freedom, Media Freedom Rapid Response recorded 83 alerts in last year. Independent media and critics are facing constant death threats for their critical reporting. Recent cases involved the Slavko Čuruvija Foundation, which received death threats related to the unsolved murder of journalist Slavko Čuruvija in 1999. Hostility toward the media was also evident in numerous hate graffiti in Belgrade, directed at N1 and Nova S television stations. I would also highlight the case of the regime targeting of journalist Tamara Skroza from the Fonet news agency, which also came from the very top of the state. Our colleague, Tamara Skroza, is a single mother and seriously ill, which did not prevent the regime from launching a lynch campaign against her. Additionally, during the student and civil protests, journalists and cameramen from independent media were targeted by the regime activists. I also want to remind that Amnesty International revealed that the regime in Serbia is monitoring journalists and their sources using spy software called Novi Spy. There are, of course, also SLAP lawsuits against independent media, filed by individuals closely connected to the regime. The most targeted are the investigative portal Krik from Belgrade, as well as the local media In Media from Inđija, a small town 40 kilometers from Belgrade. Despite everything, compared to the last spring, the social atmosphere in Serbia has completely changed, primarily thanks to the students, who with their protests encourage citizens. Fear in Serbia has therefore changed sides. More and more citizens are no longer afraid of the regime and can see the fear in the eyes of the regime highest officials. Since fear is the main tool of every autocrat in the world, it is clear that the fall of the autocratic regime in Serbia is inevitable, as it has lost its main tool. That's from my side.
Thank you so much, Dinko, for sharing us your personal history, actually, linked to all these events and to state about the media situation in Serbia, which we know that is also really problematic at all levels. So thank you so much. I would like to give the floor to Irena now to maybe add some details to what has been said, especially from your perspective, because you worked on the state of democracy in Serbia and civil society. So what do you see as perspective for what is currently happening in Serbia regarding democratization and the current situation for the civil society for the future?
Okay. Hello, can you hear me? Yeah.
Yes, we can hear you. Thank you.
Good afternoon. So maybe I will try.
Excuse me, can you speak maybe a little bit loudly, because I'm not sure that everybody hears you really well.
I put mic.
Yeah, your mic is a little bit like at a low level. Now we don't hear you. You got your mic, I think. It's still off. You just got your mic. It's ready.
The mic is closed.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I'm trying to.
Okay.
It's okay. It's okay.
It's okay now.
It's okay now?
Yes, it's better.
Yeah, I usually not speak very loud, but just remind me if I,
Great.
if I try to start to be incomprehensible. So, I can start with the question you posed to us as your research question. What is the challenge? Can student protest challenge Vučić regime? And I will focus on democracy and social movement, as I would call this protest. Although students doesn't like to but they are a full-fledged actually movement. So while many things have been said about this protest, I would like to underline what I believe are the key points that make this protest significant in challenging regimes. So my focus can be on, let's say, on innovation that student movements has brought into the political and public sphere, innovations that are challenging the regime. And differently than Dušan, I will not speculate on possible scenarios because this is not my area. So first thing, which Dušan already mentioned a bit, is what makes this movement stand out is the narrative the students have created. It's a narrative that Vučić himself is struggling to counter. They have this simple demand, and at first glances look very politically naive. They want the institution to function properly according to the laws and constitution. They want the institution to work as they are meant to, not distorted by personal or partial party interests. They don't directly ask for the resignation or the elections. And here I think, I believe, strongly lies the brilliance actually of this strategy. This is a narrative that Vučić cannot easily fight in the public sphere because it's a call for a very functioning of democracy that he himself claimed to support. At the same time, this narrative is also incredibly clever because they use this anti-politics narrative, one that he cannot easily oppose because it's a narrative he himself also is using very often when discrediting political opponents. This is the first thing. Second, I believe one of the key elements of this movement lies in how students are organized. They have chosen to organize in a horizontal structure. This is an approach that is crucial for understanding their power. This organization prevents the emergence of leaders, which makes it much harder for the regime to target specific individuals or groups. They also have made it clear that they don't wish to collaborate with established political parties or other social political actors such as NGOs, and they actually publicly refuse such collaboration. This also helped them to gain legitimacy in a deeply polarized political environment and led them to, let's say, until now, successful mobilization of a wide support that cuts, as Dušan said, across ideological lines. They actually managed to liberate citizens from their fear of opposing the regime. And this broad mobilization is working for now, partly due to the deep mistrust the Serbian public has in political actors. Now, this strategy is something that is game changer for Vučić. It disarms him because it makes it difficult for him to attack these protests using the usual tactics. Initially, I don't know, 2 months ago, he tried to label the students as enemies of the Serbian people, as he usually do with the opponents, and was trying to identify their leaders or donors, but he failed. What I also think is very relevant is that beyond disarming the regime, the student strategy, this strategy has another significant impact. It's actually putting democratic pressure on opposition political actors. It forced them to rethink how they can use this political crisis, not as an opportunity to mobilize students for their own agendas, because they are not allowing that to happen for now, but to consider how they can challenge the regime with their own resources and from their own positions without exploiting that protest. And I will be very short now. The third dimension I consider the more relevant is this legacy I think this movement is leaving for the future as a practice, because they practice this completely different model of democracy, a model that stands actually in stark contrast to the one we've grown used to in Serbia. They hold plenums, open gatherings where every student is welcome to participate, voice their opinions and present their arguments, ideally. And ideally, these discussions are based on inclusivity and equality, and no central leader is directing the conversation, just moderators of inclusive discussions. They actually created what we called in my area of study, the deliberative environment, where every voice ideally has a chance to be heard and differences are set aside to focus on the central goal. Of course, I'm aware that they are facing challenges. I'm following the plenums and achieving this kind of ideal, but and not all plenums works in the same way. But it seems that until now, they managed to reflect on the challenges they encountered and to improve their procedures of inclusive discussion. And this is something very important for our society. This model of democratic practice, although not completely unknown in Serbia, is definitely not a part of our political cultures. And students are not showing us only that this is possible to practice democracy in this more meaningful way, but that this model can also be copied on other mobilized groups that now are trying to organize in similar ways. As I said, the students, of course, face many obstacles on their paths in creating these discussions and this model of democracy, but they're showing us that there is a way of different way of political engagement is possible. And I think this is a lesson in democracy that we haven't had the opportunity to experience before, at least for the last, I don't know, I think ever before. So just a concluding reflection. I said I will not speculate on how this crisis will be institutionalized and operationalized, and if we as a society cannot find a way to effectively operationalize the energy of this process, we will still have one lasting impact. The generation of young people who may not immediately change the regime of the system, but who are politically socialized into something different, something that is not this authoritarian political environment. And I really believe this is very relevant and should be taken in consideration in future reflection of this movement of protests. This is it. I respected my 7 time.
Thank you,
7
Irena.
minutes
Yes,
time.
you respected it. That's great. Thank you so much, all of
Thank
you. For your presentations on this first question. I would love to give the floor now to Mila Pajić, who is, as I said, one of our main activists in Novi Sad since the tragedy that happened in November of 2024. I would like to ask you first 2 short questions that you can answer as you wish. First, why do you personally participate in protests? What does it mean for you, and why is it so important as a young student, young citizen of Serbia to participate and to lead this movement? And the second question will be, do you think that this is a movement that is primarily driven by university students, or do you think that actually it's a topic that animates most of the Serbian youth, and that the whole Serbian youth is generally affected by this topic? So please, I give you the floor.
Okay, thank you, Neira. Yeah, well, Dušan, Irena, and Professor Dinko said a lot of things about the protests. Firstly, I need to say that I'm not speaking in front of the plenary of my Faculty of Philosophy of Novi Sad. So I'm a student, but I'm not a representative of the plenary, and I'm not the representative of all students. That's what Irena was talking about. We have a pretty good horizontal structure, and it functions well because we don't have leaders of the protests, so nobody can, and it's not always nobody. They are trying, the media is trying to find a face which they can target, but on the other side, we are trying not to have a face that can be targeted. Well, personally, I actually didn't want to speak a lot about why I'm personally engaged in the protests, but I think we have a type of a legacy from activists and journalists and students, not just from November until now, but from last 10 or more years, because they created a safe space from where we gathered, from where we started engaging in activism. So it didn't just happen like this. Some students are on the streets and they're protesting. We had safe spaces in universities, in civil society organizations, in different groups of people who are fighting for democracy or for human rights. And from there, we actually were raised somehow. So the first thing is that I feel the legacy, and the second thing is, and it is really personally, I don't want to live in Serbia if Serbia looks like this and functions like this. So we have 2 options. We have an option to fight for a better society, for a society, not just the society, but for the system who respects the constitution, the laws, who is responsible for its citizens, because it's there for us, we're not there for them. And if the society and the system doesn't function that way, the only other option I have is to leave. And I guess I would have more predictable life in some other country than in Serbia. But the the first thing that I felt is the drive to actually start or try to start some change in this society. So that is regarding your first question. And the second one, it's, I think, we don't have a lot of researches because it's happening in this moment. So I know some researches are being done and implemented in this moment, but we don't have a concluded one. But a lot of, I think the majority of people who are protesting are students. And that is what we got, the difference between the protests now and, for example, last year when we had the election fraud, because that's when informal groups of young people and the youth started organizing in different cities. And we had a lot of protests against, not against, but because the election fraud in Belgrade firstly, and then in the local elections. So then we had a lot of people in the streets also, but that were people who were protesting year by year. Just the reasons of the protest changed, but that were the people who are prone to protests. And now we have a big difference because all students are engaged. Majority of students are engaged, and that is the difference in the number and in the results of the protest. Because now you have, I will give you an example. We had small local protests in the University of Novi Sad. It started actually in April when the incident with Professor Dinko happened. So an informal group formed itself, and we had some protests because of the student parliament elections. And just to be clear, the level of student parliament elections is the same as the parliament, the national parliament elections. In fact, it functions in the same way. So then we had 10 people in the Faculty of Philosophy fighting for respecting our documents of the faculty, the law on student organizing. So it was us 10. And now we have just 50 people sleeping in the faculty and tens of thousands of people in the streets. So in Serbia, not just in Novi Sad, but in Serbia. So, and we have a protest every day. We have marches through different cities. Now we have the one into Kragujevac. So just people now, and especially students, are not going to the faculties. They don't have classes. And the only thing now that they are doing is trying to find ways to demand the accountability and find a way to put pressure on the institutions to actually fulfill the demands. So that's why we have a different number of demonstrants in the streets and a different manner of the protest, because it's not just a protest, it's a really organized type of pressure, because we have different bodies who are giving us structure. And when you have a structure, then your way of your activities, your protests, your pressure is going to be more structured. So that's for this time. I don't know if you want to ask something else too.
Thank you so much. I will ask 2 more questions, and of course now everybody can answer. It's not dedicated to one of you personally. But I would like to ask about how, is there any political support actually? Because we know that currently there is no directly support from the opposition or anything. Do you think that this is something that will be important for the movement to have support from any political parties or the opposition? Mila, I saw you, so I suppose you have an answer already. As it was the case during the last movement that we had last year, Serbia against violence, after the tragedy in Belgrade, in the school in Belgrade. So that will be the question for now. So Mila, I can give you the floor, and if any other ones want to add something, do not hesitate.
Yes, I can answer, but I wanted to say one more thing. Maybe I can say it later and answer now your question, because I remembered what I wanted also to say about the reactions of the government to the student protest, because I think it's important to have perspective from the students, how it looks like in our eyes, because they're trying in different ways, in different strategies to put a full stop on the protests. And until now, all of the they just didn't manage to do that. So, but I will get back to that later. I can answer your question, or if somebody else wants, I can stop. Oh, okay. So yeah, I think we don't have actually any political support in the opposition parties, but it goes into two sides, because students are not asking for it. Not just not asking for it, but they are demanding for the opposition to step away from the protests, because they saw how it looked like when the opposition parties were leading the protests. We had elections and nothing changed. So I think it's fair that they are not in the first row, because students are not asking for it. But I think they have enough space to have their own type of pressure parallel to the student one. So we are a big group, but a group of young people who has its own goals and its own ways to put the pressure on the institutions. But on the other side, we have a different, really important societal, political group of people who is logically more strong, or should be more stronger than the first one, who is not doing anything. They are trying to maybe they're not doing enough, not anything, but they're not doing enough. So I think we don't have a political support, and I'm not sure that they I think they're confused. They don't know how. Maybe they want to help, but they don't know how to help if they are not mixing with students. So I think it's that the opposition parties are now totally confused what to do, because when they come to protests, firstly, in our invitation, the student invitation for the protest, it says that opposition parties are not invited. So I guess that their solution is just not to come and don't do anything. And I think they're a little bit confused about that, what to do if I cannot go to a protest that is organized by students. And they have a lot of other spaces they can fill with different activities that are connected to what they do and their responsibility. So yeah, that's it.
Thank you, Mila. I don't know if any one of you would like to answer to this question too and add some comments. Otherwise, I can ask the next question.
Well,
Dušan?
Yeah, I can try to add a little bit. I mean, if we speak about the support of the opposition parties to the protests, of course, there is formally no link. And as Mila and we all mentioned, they are asked to step aside. However, there is I mean, part of the support in different kind of resources was provided by people who are either activists in political parties or vote for political parties or are some kind of leadership together with the rest of the society. So in that sense, they are doing something, but not publicly for a number of reasons. And I think Mila described it quite nicely. The opposition is at the same time, I mean, it's not even in position to help students, because students are stronger at the moment than any other political force in the society, and actually student movement could help the opposition become more influential. So this is kind of, I mean, it is completely upside down, and it is confusing for us to understand what's going on, but it is also very confusing for the oppositions. They've been asked not to do anything. But when they start working on other issues that still exist in society, then part of the public is asking them to be silent because they are moving the focus away from students' demands. If they start working something aligned to students' demands, they've been accused of riding the wave of student movement. So they've been constantly attacked by different parts of society, not always the same. And from time to time, they manage to find a proper way to to put pressure on the regime. For example, there was I think it was late December when the MPs from Novi Sad and Belgrade blocked the prosecution office in Novi Sad, or at several occasions prevented police to react against the students. But this is not enough, so to say, and then opposition is really stuck in a really strange position. Of course, it's not only due to strength of the students. It's of course has to do something with the opposition activities since 2023 elections and their divisions based on whether to or not to participate in local elections and so on and so forth. So it's really complicated and a little bit counterintuitive than you might expect.
Thank you so much, Dušan. Dinko had something to add. Yeah.
You can hear me now.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. I think this situation in Serbia in this very moment is very unique situation if we talk about politics. The regime has destroyed the political system completely. The regime eliminated the opposition completely. But on the other side, the regime in last 3 months has has also delegitimized itself. So now we find ourselves in a situation where political parties are no longer actors in the political system, which may sound absurd, but I think it is the case. Additionally, the regime has destroyed also and captured also the institutions and almost all the media sphere. So the question from my point of view arises, what is the way out of this situation, which, as I said, is very unique? The only institution nowadays in Serbia that has defended its independence is the university. So maybe, just maybe, that's the address to look for the new transitional government without political parties.
Thank you so much. I don't know if Irena wants to add something to this. Okay.
I think I already said
Okay, yes.
regarding the collaboration, and Mila repeated that by saying that they actually don't want to do this, and this is something that they strategically use, but there are also very good reasons why not to collaborate with political parties right now.
Yes, thank you. Jean-Michel, do I still have time to ask one more question, and then we will give the floor to the public for their questions, because I already see that there are one question popping in the conversation. I would like to ask all of you, what are your thoughts on the EU's stance and its silence regarding the protests? What do you expect actually maybe from the European Union, especially in light of the past issues that we had in Serbia, such as Rio Tinto and the lithium mining, for this movement that is currently happening? I see a lot of laughs.
Irena, you have the floor.
Sorry.
Irena, would you like to add something about this topic?
I don't know. It's very complicated.
Yeah.
But given the Rio Tinto and all the positions we know of the EU and support that is actually supporting the stability of this regime, I don't understand how this is stability, but I still hope then in this moment the students can somehow change this relationship, because I have some fears, but on the one side, although we know that we are really our older generation confronting to them, we have fears that the students are a bit right-wing oriented, let's say like that. They're accepting something which for our generations was not acceptable. We still don't know how to frame this. I think they're finding the way to have a common ground, which is very good because. But on the other hand, and this is something I fear, but on the other hand, they are calling the rest. They are really calling the responsibility of all actors for the democratic institutions, and they're showing they want all these things that actually EU wants. So rule of law, representative institutions to work properly, etc., etc. So in this line, it's really stretched. I think that. And I already talked about this narrative, how they are focusing on institutions and to work properly. I think they can gain support and reaction from the EU, positive. But we don't have this positive experience until now, so it's very stretched. Let's say my conclusion or hope.
Thank you. I think Dušan was the first to raise his hand.
Yeah, I mean, following what Irena said, I think students' demands are in line with what EU expects from Serbia for quite a long time, and the support to these demands would be acceptable and expected, but it's not happening at the moment due to this support to the regime. So it's kind of ironic that at the same time Russia, China, United States, and European Union is supporting the regime, and half of the population are on the street. And on the other side, it's worth noting that we know for a fact that regime is explaining these protests as they are under Russian influence when they are talking to Western countries, and they're accusing West for sparkling the riots when they're talking to their Russian counterparts. So it's another confusing level to this already upside down story from Serbia. But I might add, since we have kind of international audience, that I would say that for the sake of EU influence in the region, I think they need to send or you guys need to send much clearer message of support to Serbian students, because at the end of the day, regardless of if this fail or succeed, I mean the part of the shame would fall on the EU. There was a excellent debate in EU Parliament yesterday and before yesterday, and some of the speeches, including the Slovenian MP Jovova, gathered a lot of attention and caused a lot of tears across the region. So I think it shows a space for a different approach. I mean, I do fully understand the pragmatics of politics and the fact that Vučić still holds two most important positions, and that we don't clearly see who is the alternative. But I think there's a more diplomatic space, if not for the right reason, for the right cause, then from purely interest-based perspective of the European Union and member states.
Thank you, Dušan. I just want to mention, I see that some people raise their hands in the public, so I will first give the floor to Mila and Dinko, and then we will go next to the questions later. So don't worry, we do not forget you. We'll see you, so we will take your questions a little bit later. So Mila, we are listening to you.
Yes, I would be really short. I think that we need to be realistic, that we have one part of the EU supporting us, but that now we have a crisis in the EU, and we had the plenary session 2 days ago. We saw the support, so Serbia was a topic, but I think that we need to be more realistic, and that we cannot demand from the EU to solve our problems. Of course, that we can expect from EU support for people who are peacefully demonstrating, who are peacefully demanding accountability, responsibility, and democratic functioning of the system. But I think that not all people high officials who came to Serbia and had a public conversation with the president or the resigned prime minister, and that they're saying that Serbia has the stability, they're not representatives of the whole European Union. So I think that we have support, but that we cannot expect from them to solve our problems, and that we need to be more realistic in that manner to see that crisis in Europe is also happening, and that we are not the only ones who have big demonstrations in the streets. We are not the only ones who have the crisis here. And now I think that now with the spillover effect on other countries of the region, it can gather more attention in Europe, because now we have Croatia protesting, we have Bosnia, we have Montenegro, we will see, we have Slovakia, so we will see. But I think it can gather more attention, but we cannot expect that they will, neither they have the responsibility to solve our problems. That's it.
Thank you, Mila. Yes, especially this question of can this become a transnational movement is really interesting to tackle. I don't know if we will have time to talk about this in the Q&A part, but thank you to mention that. Dinko, I give you the floor.
Thank you. First of all, I want to underline that I'm pro-European person. That means that I believe in the values on which the EU is based. But some key European politicians, however, clearly do not believe in the foundations of the EU, because otherwise they would not support those who pursue policies that are completely contrary to the core civilizational values of the EU. I'm sure that this no longer matters at all for us, whether or not those kind of European politicians will support us. If they do, it would be nice for them, because they would be on the side of justice and good. If they do not, then they are on the side of injustice and evil. Let them continue selling, I don't know, warplanes to the regime. Let them continue signing mining contracts with Mr. Vučić. Let them continue praising it for some economic successes, like economic tiger on the Balkans. That's not the reason that I will become Eurosceptic because of such statements. But I'm completely sure of our strength to fight for the right to organize our society in a way that allows us to live normally. And when I said they, I mean those European politicians will certainly support the winner, because they are, as it is, politically pragmatic. I want to add just one more thing. Due to the wars of 90s, we were on the Balkans, unfortunately, and to our shame, a kind of vanguard of global evil that was spreading and continues to spread across the world. But now I'm sure that we are on the right path to becoming a kind of avant-garde of good. We are already, thanks to the students who are a social force with the strongest political and all other legitimacy, the brightest point in Europe nowadays. I hope the wise people will recognize this and adopt it into their own societies as the strongest response to the wave of new global fascism.
Thank you so much, Dinko, and thank you to all of you to answer all these questions. So I think that now we will give the floor to the public. Jean-Michel,
Yes,
did
I
you
will,
also get some other questions?
Yes.
I added the one that was sent to me. So
Okay, thank you very much. Then it's a Q&A session now. You have your yellow hand. Don't hesitate to send your questions. And please also a small presentation, then we can understand exactly who are you, etc. And please short questions. It's not time to give us new analysis. We will organize a new webinar on the Serbian situation. Then we can give you the floor in the other webinar. But now it's Q&A questions. I see somebody, but I don't know who is it. And then yellow hand first.
Yeah, we have Anel with his first yellow hand, then Serafin and Ivailo. And we had
Yes,
also some
I
questions.
I see.
Ah, okay.
I see. I will manage. Yes. Anel.
Hello, everyone. I am a Turkish living in Hungary, so it's like a incredible combination, these three countries, including Serbia, maybe in this context, unfortunately. And I ended up seeing a lot of parallels. But for me, most interesting one, to be honest, this EU issue. Yeah, I mean, unacceptably, there is huge pragmatism. But also it's I think a bit complicated. Mila also pointed. I mean, EU cannot solve the problem of Serbia or Turkey. Because and also this might be somewhat a tool if there's a clear support, there's visible support. It is easy for these nationalist authoritarian leaders. You see, they are like foreign backed. So it is, I think, complicated. But I think there should be still some way to manage this, and to be able to communicate this with the public, like tools to get this support, like and to communicate this with the publics in a way that won't help these authoritarian leaders for their nationalist narrative. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Another questions, and we will give you the floor to answer to different questions. Serafin?
Yes, hi. My name is Serafin. I'm also a PhD student at ULB, working on EU-Serbia relations. And I just wanted to thank you for organizing this panel, and to all the speakers, especially to Dinko and Mila for being here and sharing their personal experiences. My question is going to be short. I am wondering, how scared is the regime? How much do you think they are feeling under pressure now? Because some of these actions seem very, very desperate. And I am wondering how high you think the pressure is at this point. Thanks.
Thank you. And to finish it first, questions. Ivailo?
Hello, I'm Ivailo. I'm a researcher in Berlin, in Germany, but I'm from Bulgaria. My question, first, thank you for organizing this webinar and for the guests for their presentation. It's historical time from my perspective for Serbia, and the decision now will be very important. Like the next several weeks, probably what will happen will be very important. So, do you think that there is any sign that students can make let's say a political movement or a coalition with the oppositional groups, not only parties but civil society organization, let's say a historical coalition that can change, can provoke actually a systematic change? Because otherwise, I mean, protests usually go several months and then people don't have so much energy to continue going on the streets or to occupy universities.
Okay, thank you. We want give some answers, some reflection. I don't know. Dušan, you have the floor.
Okay, I won the speedy hands competition against Mila. Okay, let me start from the EU influence. Yes, they cannot solve our problems, of course, but EU is at the moment supporting the government openly and claiming that Serbia is successful democracy and successful case against claims of civil society, experts, academia, international missions, for example, related to elections and so on and so forth. So I do understand this problem between being, if you support the opposition, then they can be framed as a foreign agent. But at this point in time, there's a clear support for the regime that is not democratic anymore. And it is based on narrative that the regime is democratic. So that's kind of, I think, going a few steps ahead. That's not necessary. And the second question I'll try to answer is regime scared? I have no clue. I think we are all on some sort of roller coaster. You know, on Monday and Tuesday, we believe that we got him, you know, it's almost the end of the, you know, something will happen. Then Wednesday and Thursday are pessimistic, and then Friday, nobody knows. So I think there are signs to both claims. For example, Vučić and Vučević, Prime Minister, they say that they will organize a huge rally in Novi Sad during weekend to show their strength and support. And they decided, and then they give up. I would say they're afraid, and they moved the rally to a smaller town, not far away from Novi Sad, but where they feel safer. So that would be one of many signs that they're certainly concerned. And for the first time, you can see the change of the, as someone wrote, the fear has switched sides. So that there is some kind of change. I'm not sure, is it long lasting? And they are also, I think, changing mood from day to day. So we are still in the middle of the process, and that's why I fully agree that next few weeks are crucial, and the pressure that will go up or down. I've met with many journalists in the last few weeks, and some of them, especially journalists from the region, so people who understand, I mean, from Slovenia or Croatia, who understand situation. When they've been here during the huge rally in Novi Sad a weekend ago, they say that they feel like something big is happening, not only in the terms of, you know, tackling the autocratic regime, but they felt like something is deeply changing in Serbian society. I hope that they're right, yet not convinced.
Thank you, Mila.
Yes, thank you. I think that we can see if the regime is scared from their reactions. We had different tries. We had different manners that they tried to do to provoke a reaction from students or to stop the protest. So firstly, we had before the big student protest started, but in November, in the first part of December, we had activists in prison. We had the Security Intelligence Agency not just threatening students and activists, but taking them in the middle of the night to their offices for 4 or 3 hours there. And we had, that was the first try. The second one was when they started talking with families of the victims that were killed in the train station, that died in the train when the canopy fell. And they started a sort of a media campaign with the families, the families were trying to stop the protest because they asked the students to go out of the faculties. So that was the second campaign. The third campaign was violence in the streets. So they wanted to send a message: don't go to protests because look, this can happen to you. We had 3 people injured in the protest because a car went into the public. So that were 3 or 4 different tries from their side. And I think it's not just a strategy, it actually shows fear. It shows that they are constantly trying a new way and nothing is actually working for them, because the faculties are still all of them in the blockade. Not one of them exited the blockade. So they cannot find a way to stop this. And I think that they are overwhelmed. And I think that for me showed how scared they were. It was the resign of the prime minister, because the demands are a little bit different in Belgrade University and in the University of Novi Sad. The University of Novi Sad had as a demand a resign of the prime minister, Miloš Vučić, and he, for 2 months, he didn't resign. But when some activists of the Serbian Progressive Party injured students who were sticking some stickers in the streets, and they seriously injured one student, one girl. When that happened in the middle of the night, in the early morning, they didn't do anything. And then just it popped up that he feels the responsibility to resign because of what happened, because they could predict that if they didn't do anything, the protests, and you could feel that energy, especially in Novi Sad, because it happened in Novi Sad, that people are more eager, that people are more mad than they were because of, again, what happened from the activists of the Serbian Progressive Party. And they felt that if they don't do anything regarding that the protest can become even wider, and that some type of radicalization of the protest can happen because of the situation which happened in the incident. So I think that shows us how fast the prime minister resigned, because one event that could make the protests wider, I think that shows us how are they in fear or not. Yeah, that's it from me.
Thank you, Irena.
Okay, thank you. Now Dušan and Mila already answered some questions, and I agree. I would repeat, I think the regime is scared because we see some not constant reactions, like some repression, some changing people that are in the government, etc. But I think all the other questions that are posed are somehow connected. We can give the answer. This is connected. There was Waele's questions: can students build a coalition that would change the regime? But on the other hand, as Dušan said, we don't have a proper conditions to hold democratic elections, and the EU knows that, and we are and Dušan give good arguments for that. We have international organizations claiming that and supporting the democratic process in Serbia, but still EU is not reacting, and we have this Vučić on the government, and if we have another elections, the question is if we're going to be democratic. Probably not. So why would students choose to build the coalitions that will go to the election in this moment? I don't see what is why this could be their strategy. This is why I'm insisting on that they're choosing very wisely this strategy. They are pushing, they're actually claiming that they're fighting for the European values of democracy and rule of law and everything. And this is how they influence public opinion, both in Serbia and also in the EU. They can maybe do something in that way. But why? They don't have an interest, and we don't have interest. If they organize a political party with no proper rules of democratic game, then this doesn't make sense at all. So all these things are very connected. While we don't have the EU support, I don't know how we can go to back to institutional arena and have a proper democratic elections.
Thank you, Dinko.
About the fear of the regime. Yes, I think the regime is very frightened. They are constantly making moves that are completely counterproductive. They are using old methods that simply no longer work. This is the consequence, I think, of the wisest message sent by the students to Mr. Vučić. They said, by our constitution, you are not competent for answering on our demands. As a result, more and more citizens are ignoring him or making jokes at him. For any autocrat on this world, this is the worst nightmare. Also, this time, the regime tactic of exhausting the protesters simply not working, because time is working for the citizens. As the protests are spreading, we can say, capillary throughout society in every single local municipality in Serbia. So people are tired of humiliation and no longer want to tolerate it. Among these people, I include also so-called ordinary members of the Serbian Progressive Party who have been sadistically humiliated all these years. So for the first time in these almost 13 years of Vučić's regime, I'm optimistic. And I really think that my assessment is politically rational.
Okay, thank you. Stefan?
Hi, everyone. Do you see me? Yeah. I thank you very much for this very important discussion. I already posed my question in chat, so I could just repeat. Do you think these student protests could give rise to an entirely new political option? Or could so-called student assemblies or plenums propose experts for a transitional government? And in what way would that be possible? And second, you mentioned the opposition. How can they be a constructive force in the protests, especially considering that, as you already mentioned, these protests is beyond politics, ideological preferences, and that maybe there is no enough space for opposition to have a clear political statements about whole political and societal situation in Serbia. Thank you.
Thank you. It's more easy if people can take, if it's possible, because read question is very difficult for our speakers. Then if you can put your questions as Stefan, it's more easy to manage. Mila, do you want to give an answer to Stefan?
I can, of course. Well, I think the best answer to the second question, how the opposition parties can help, is we can see how agriculture workers started protesting with students or parallel to the student fight. We have actors and actresses in theaters with their own demands, but totally included in the protests, in the student movement. Then on the other side, we have professors also protesting with their own demands. So we have different parts of the society protesting. It's a big movement, a big protest movement, and they're all parts of it, but they have different demands regarding their own field of work. So the field of work of the opposition is the politics, is not the politics as itself, but the politics, the high politics in the country. And they have their own, we call it houses, because we entered our home, our faculties. They have their institutions. I'm not saying that they should block the National Assembly, but I think that they can reflect on how other parts of the society is protesting in the movement, but with their own demands, and that they can actually communicate the political demands from the protest, because our demands are political, but they're not giving a political an answer that is a political solution to why the protests are happening. So I believe that that is a part of our opposition, to give political answers on how this situation can be solved in the political manner. That is what they can do, and they are not doing that. And the first the question about the broader political movement of students or the plenaries, I don't know, trying to choose who will be a part of the transitional government. I'm not sure that can happen, actually. I don't, and it's just based on my experience. I'm not now representing any part of the movement. I believe that we don't have now that flaw in the student movement. We don't have that idea of any kind of political body, transitional body, that is going to solve the question of our government that is now in resign. So I think that we are a little bit stuck in there, because now we have a resigned prime minister, so we don't have the government. We have to have either elections or a new government or some type of transitional government. And I'm not sure that it can be made of students, or that students will choose who will end up in that government, in the transitional government. So I think that the opposition parties can give that answers, and that for me it's important. And I think that's happening in Serbia. It's really nice, because people are crying in the streets when they see students. It's all happy. We have, after a lot of years, we have hope. We are somehow exiting the bubble of fear, and we are expecting from students to do everything now. And we are not a homogenic group of people. There are a lot of different students, different faculties, and different movements within the student movement. So I just want to say that we cannot solve everything, and that we don't need to have an answer on this, how to politically communicate what is going to happen, what is going to be the epilogue of the situation.
Thank you. I read the questions. What parallels can you draw to the protest movement and the government's reaction in other countries in the region, Slovakia, Georgia, etc.? Are there any lesson to learn? I don't know. Okay, Dušan, thank you.
Yeah, I've raised the question before you start reading that. I raised my hand before you start asking that question in particular, but I can answer that as well, or at least try. I think there's, I mean, there are some similarities, because in Slovakian case and Serbian case there is strong demand for accountability, but the difference is that this Slovakian and Georgian case have this very strong pro-European flavor, which lacks in a Serbia case, and that goes a little bit down the line of what is Juraj asking. In a sense, you know, how to make this protest more political in a traditional way in traditional meaning of that word. Conventional wisdom would say yes, it is time to make one step toward institutional politics, but that is extremely complicated step. We've been looking for some kind of some buffer zone, or something that would be in between, something that will facilitate this link, this missing link between the students and the opposition, or at least between students and the public. And we were talking about maybe the role of professors or expert communities, which might be one of the options, but it's extremely complicated to do anything because students have key saying and they are not sure what exactly to do. So, I mean, probability, everything so far goes against the probability. So you can expect actually successful story even without clear political articulation, but the probability is not that high. And it would make a stronger case if there is a support from, if there is a clear link at least to civil society, if not to, or international actors, if not the political parties. Also, someone asked about the social groups that are supporting the protest. There is a, sometimes they also do belong to private sector, like IT experts, or there was a protest in Airport City, which is a part of Belgrade where most the international companies are. So those employees would like to are supporting students, but of course they're not willing to go on strike because of that. So there is some sort of balance. And we had a few Fridays ago, there was a kind of general strike, which wasn't a proper general strike, but there was an attempt to imitate that. And then the number of private companies joined and didn't work on that Friday and enable their employees to go on the streets and support students. So it's not like black and white, but I think there is a support going on also in the private sector. And also we see a lot of entrepreneurs and owner of companies, very successful ones, who are openly supporting the students. Some of them got in trouble because of that, but still there is a strong support, which actually makes this protest possible in the first place.
Thank you very much. I don't know if one of our guests want to add something. I don't see new yellow hand. I see another question. Isn't time to make explicitly political demands? Is the idea of protester to implement change without raising the question of power? Who want to give an answer?
Yeah, I will.
Okay, thank you, Irena.
I think Mila already answered that, and I also repeat that it's not everything is. I think the student has idea to stress the government to make some changes, which are explained strategic demand, which can influence government also also Vučić to lose the power. So it's yeah, they are not raising the question of power because they are not political actor entering in the electoral competition, but they are pushing for changes in some other way. So yes, I think what they are claiming right now, the students, is that they don't want to raise the question of political power. They are stressing for they then demand to be answered.
Thank you. Maybe a last question, because I don't see yellow hand. Beyond public sectors, employers and farmers, have there been manifestation of support among private sectors employees? Who can answer?
I think I answered that as a part of my last. So that there is a IT expert, people who are working in the international companies are supporting, but not. They're not on strike, of course, because I mean, not even. I mean, we university are not on formal strike because we are trying to avoid legal framing of our actions.
Okay, and for the conclusion, Mila.
Yes, I just wanted to clear one thing, because maybe that's a little bit confusing. Why students as a big movement, that we are sort of a political actor, that's for sure, because we are making change and we are trying to put a way how this situation will develop. But I want to clear that we are not, our demands are not political and are not pointed in the election process or in any other political process, because our demands are pointed in the institutions. Because if the institutions did their job and did function in the in their sphere of responsibility and then this wouldn't happen. And if the institutions are responsible and are functioning in the by the law, then we would have legitimate electoral process. So that's why our demands are not political. We don't believe neither the power, neither the opposition parties. That's why our demands are not pointed onto them, but onto the institutions that are that need to. I forgot the word, but it's fine. The institutions of a state are responsible to its citizens. So that's why we are asking them to fulfill our demands. And if they did that, then and if they would function by the law, then the electoral process and every other political process would be legitimate and by the law. That's why our demands are not political. Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you, everybody, for your participation, and I give the floor to Neira to conclude and speak about the future.
Thank you so much, Jean-Michel. Thank you for all of you from the participants and the key speakers that we had tonight, for all the information that you shared with us, and of course also thank you for the public and their question. We are sorry that we couldn't answer to every question, because as you see, we didn't have time to tackle every topics that maybe some people would like to address tonight. But of course, we would love to organize a second webinar in the next few weeks to see how the movement is developing in Serbia and what are the next prospects for the movement and the future of Serbian society regarding democratization and maybe a new path to a better future, as we hope, in the region too, not only, I mean, from this perspective from EU and Brussels, but also from all our colleagues in the region. So thank you to all of you for being here and for everything. So I don't know if anyone wants to add something more, but I think that we can conclude the webinar tonight with these last answers.
Thank you. Bye-bye. Good evening.
Bye-bye.
Take care.